Hey guys, welcome to LA Editor, Alabama King. And on this episode, I'm gonna give you a brief intro into the project, what we're trying to do, and the basic things that happened when we planted our trees. So let's get started. Here's Farine Dirt Road coming up, rock chair. This is my first trip to Alabama with my father to see our property back in 2021. It's been in the family for many generations, and we primarily used it to grow pine trees for timber. Does not look like necessarily like farmland, does it? When I first heard about the property, I decided to go onto Google Earth and check it out. The property's 150 acres, and it was clear-cut of pine trees around 2015. Before that, with my great-grandfather, it was farmed. They grew corn and soybeans, all kinds of stuff. Most recently, it was pine trees.
Whoa, I'm gonna slip there.
So I did a little Googling, and I discovered that 150 acres with 26-year-old trees on it will bring in around $300,000, which sounds like a lot. But if you spread that out over 26 years, honestly, it's not all that much money. And that's why I decided to look into other ways that we might be able to grow a crop that didn't require us to be there every single day. You know, make a little more money than we were. And so that's when I came up with the idea to plant pecan trees. I mean, pecan trees are trees, and you just plant them, and then you can leave them, right? Yeah, not exactly. Honestly, pecans are not like lettuce. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna have to be there every single day, but they definitely require management. So, started walking around, and it was pretty cool. Like 150 acres is a lot of land. This is what the land looked like. The trees are starting to grow back. There are a lot of bushes and briars and brambles, and it doesn't really look like farmland. And as we were walking around the property, I did see a few pecan trees that are growing around there wild. So I know pecan trees can grow there. Actually, we have a farmer that leases part of the land and grows corn for his cattle. So I knew it was good land.
It is hot here. So, if you can see the corn, that's 20 acres of corn. There's Dad. 20 acres of corn that way.
Now, before we came to Alabama, I'd actually already started planning the orchard. Here's the 150-acre property. And I decided to prepare 20 acres of land, which you can see right here, and then plant 10 of those acres with pecan trees right about here. Now, this land isn't flat, it does slope, but for the most part, I thought this was one of the best places to start on the property. The plan for planting the trees was that I was gonna do 31 rows of trees with 21 trees in each row. The rows are gonna be spaced 30 feet apart, and the trees inside those rows will be spaced at 20 feet apart. So the main crop of trees, which I'm gonna get most of my nuts from, are Lakota pecan trees. And the two pollinator varietals that are gonna pollinate the Lakotas are Amling and Gafford. The skinny on the trees is Lakota trees have excellent scab and disease resistance. Same with Amling and Gafford. And I wanted to choose a varietal of pecan trees that I could sell commercially that also would require as little maintenance as possible, because I'm probably not gonna be able to make it down there but quarterly, maybe more, but for the most part, 4 times a year. So my plan is to have around 700 trees on this 10 acres. I'm gonna start with a row of Gafford, which are my pollinators. Then I'll have 5 rows of Lakota trees. And then I'm gonna have a row of Amling, which is another varietal that's also gonna be a pollinator. So between the pollinators, I have 150 feet, so I shouldn't have any issues with pollination. So it's gonna go Gafford, 5 rows of Lakota, then Amling. Then I'm gonna have another 5 rows of Lakota, and then another row of Gafford. And then I just repeat that pattern over and over and over for 31 rows. I'll cover why I did that and how I plan the orchard on a different video. First thing I did was have Frank King of King Timber, who's my dad's cousin. He cleared the land for me. This was before it was cleared.
There's that tower for reference.
And this was after he cleared 20 acres. He used a bulldozer to do this. I mean, he literally just pushed everything out of the way and then just burned the trash. When I say trash, it's all organic, but you have to burn it. Then after Frank cleared the land, he took soil samples and sent them off to Auburn to be tested, so we could know what kind of fertilizers we needed to put down and if we needed to lime the property and stuff like that. So I was in Los Angeles while all this was going on, so I couldn't really see the land and what was happening. I just got pictures and heard things like, yeah, it's coming along. Anyway, while all that was happening, I was ordering the trees for delivery, scheduling all of that, and trying to figure out how to come back to Alabama for tree planting. Now, to plant the trees, I had to find somebody to help me do that. I did go onto Yelp, and this came up. It's Stumped Tree Services. They do tree removal. But I just decided I'm going to give this guy a call and see if he can help me out. So his name's Brady Lucas, and he's an absolute godsend. I mean, I couldn't have done this project without him, and he continues to help me manage the property while I'm not there, looking after it, and he'll do things for me. He has some guys that work for them, and they've been helping me farm the land. That's how I've been able to do some of this stuff remotely. Brady's amazing. Anyway, Frank got the soil samples back, and he took them to his farmer's co-op, and they told him that he didn't have to do anything to the property. We didn't have to lime it or anything. It had enough lime, it was good, everything was great. All we needed to do was plant the trees. Looking back, I don't think that was correct, because, everyone I've talked to, all the farmers and stuff that know anything about land, they've said that whenever you have land that has had pine trees on it, you need to lime the property. Actually, I've heard that a ton of lime per acre every single year, just dropping that is considered basic upkeep. But anyway, I'm learning all this as I go, and this is my first 10 acres. As we go and plant the other 10 acres and the future acres, I'm going to be much more prepared for those acres. So basically, we bulldozed the land, Brady drilled the holes for the trees, and had his guys drop them in, and boom, we're done. That's all we did. Then I got my dad, his cousin Bill King, his son Paris King, and all of us went onto the property and we added these Tyvek sleeves as tree protectors. Now I'm going to go into that on another video because this is actually a super cool, cost-effective way to protect your trees, and it worked very well. But there were some positives to it and some negatives, and on another video I'll go into that. The other thing I did to the sleeves was that I got these little sachets off Amazon, and I put slivers of Irish Spring inside them, and then I stapled them to the Tyvek. This is what I did. Goes down. I got the soap down here. Soap there. Probably everybody thought I was crazy, but I'd heard somewhere that if you hung Irish Spring soap on your trees, that the scent would actually keep the deer away, so they wouldn't eat your young trees or rub up against them or anything like that. So when we're sliding these Tyvek sleeves on, we're providing protection and hopefully some deer repellent. So this is what the land looked like after we planted. Look, the land still looks rough. The trees look great. The land looks rough. Nothing's smooth. I've still got divots in the land. And I'm going to have to disc all of that, but I didn't have time or the money to do that at the moment. I only had like 2 or 3 days to be down there for planting. I'd never met Brady before, and I needed to make connections and sort of learn a little bit more about Laverne and the area and how things actually operate, like how you go to the co-op and what a co-op is and what it does and those sorts of things. So, baby steps. So what we did was we cleared the land, bought the trees, and we planted about 500 trees. 500 trees is not 700 trees, right? That's because I was starting to run out of money. I had enough trees for one more pollinating row, but I didn't have enough Lakota trees to go in the middle of them. So basically I planted my last pollinating row of Gafford, and then 150 feet away from that, I planted a row of pollinators, which I call my lone row or my lost row. And the idea was that later I would plant another 5 rows of Lakota, 21 trees each. That's the plan. So these are my little amlings here. These were all potted plants, and all the taller ones are the Lakotas. So you can see all the trees there. Let me zoom in a little bit. Trees protectors are going to keep, they're like little, oh yes, let me go ultra wide. That way, all this, and then I'm going to zoom back around. You see what I'm looking at? So this area that's empty
I'm planting 5 more rows of lakotas here, and I'm probably going to do that when I do my second set of acreage. But I have to plan, so these are my pollinators for that. That's going to be the edge of the end of the orchard here. And that little row, that next little row you see right there, that's my other pollinator, the Gafford. And right here where you don't see any trees and it's huge and messy, we're gonna heavy disc this soon. All lakotas like the other ones, all those big white ones out there that you see, they're gonna be planted here. And but right now, aside from the 32 missing trees, when I get those trees, I will have planted 496 trees. So I have 124 pollinators and 372 main crop trees. And we got all that done. They did it in a day and a half. They planted all these trees. This is it from this perspective. You can see how it slopes down. It's a lot to clean up.
Oh, one more thing I want to say is that I got bare root trees and potted trees. All of my pollinators were potted trees. All of my main crop of Lakota were bare root trees, except for a few rows. What was better, potted trees or bare root trees? I do have the results as to how those trees did, and in a later episode, I'm definitely going to talk about that because I was blown away. Anyway, back to the story. So this is what the orchard looks like. I think it's pretty awesome. I can't believe we pulled it off. And this cost a little less than $30,000 to clear the land, to buy the trees, to drill the holes, and get them planted. Now, I wish I could have deep disked, limed the property, and sprayed for weeds, but honestly, that wasn't in my budget. And if I hadn't planted the trees when I did, the project never would have gotten started. I mean, I just never would have done it. So it's not ideal, but I'm glad I did what I did, because we have the beginnings of an orchard, and that was goal number 1. So that's a good thing. But it did set me up to have a few problems down the road.
Okay, so I wanted to give you a little perspective. Look, this is me. I'm 5'8".
Problems with weeds, Tyvek, root rot, dead trees, you name it, we probably had it. And you'll see that on later episodes, so please like, subscribe, follow me on this journey.